Batman, Catwoman, the Joker, Green Lantern. These are just a few examples of characters co-created by Bill Finger, the ghost behind the bat. Before his contributions made Batman a living legend and one of the most recognizable superheroes in the world, Bill Finger was just an ambitious writer working part-time selling shoes when he joined Bob Kane's small studio in 1938 after the two met at a party. Now initially Bob Kane hired him to be a ghostwriter for the comic strip Rusty and Clip Carlson, marking the start of a partnership that would quietly shape the comic book industry. In 1939, after National Comics saw a massive success with Superman in Action Comics #1, editors rushed to find a similar hero, and eventually a gothic hero would be born. But there were some hiccups along the way. The story goes that Bob Kane came up with a character called Batman, and showed Finger early sketches of a figure who looked a lot like Superman. This figure wore reddish tights and boots, had no gloves or gauntlets, a small domino mask, stiff bat wings, and swung on a rope from the Batman title. Finger, however, had some suggestions. 1. Replace the domino mask with a cowl that had pointed bat ears. 2. Swap the wings for a cape, add gloves, and change the red costume elements to gray. 3. White eye lenses, which were influenced by Lee Falk's The Phantom. And 4. Give the name Bruce Wayne. Kane would later describe Finger as a key creative force who helped turn Batman from a simple vigilante into a scientific detective. But historian Mark Taylor Nobleman noted that Kane showed the character to editors and secured the deal without including Bill Finger at all. In fact, historians would agree that Finger wrote the script for Batman's first appearance in Detective Comics number 27 and 28, while Kane handled the art. Batman quickly became a breakout success, and Finger continued writing many early stories, contributing significantly to the creation and the development of the Joker. It's even noted that Finger did extensive research for his plots, gathering photo references from sources like National Geographic, so Kane had some accurate visuals for locations such as railroad stations or factories. Though organized and methodical, Finger struggled with consistency and sometimes failed to produce material on schedule. Then editors at the time considered replacing him, and during one absence, Gardner Fox introduced elements like the utility belt, the bat gyro or bat plane, and the Batarang. However, upon his return, Finger got back to work. He's credited with naming Gotham City. He wrote the first issue of Batman introducing both the Joker and Catwoman, and his stories often featured oversized props like giant pennies, sewing machines, and typewriters. In early tales, he avoided placing Batman in a cave to prevent similarities to the Phantom or Zorro, instead describing underground hangars beneath Wayne's property. Eventually, Finger left Kane's studio and worked directly for DC, scripting stories for both Batman and Superman. Elements from Superman's radio show entered the comics when Finger and Al Pacino introduced Kryptonite in Superman number 61 back in 1949. During his time on Superboy, Finger created Lana Lang as a teenage superhero's love interest, and in 1955 he introduced Bat-Hound in Batman number 92, Bat-Mite in Detective Comics number 267, Clayface in Detective Comics number 298, and Betty Kane, the original Batgirl, in Batman 139. He also wrote for Fawcett Comics, Quality Comics, and Timely Comics, now known as Marvel Comics, where he created the All-Winner Squad in All-Winners Comics number 19 back in 1946. In fact, it could be said that Bill Finger came up with the majority of Batman's rogues gallery. In a 1966 interview, Finger described the Joker's creation, though he wasn't sure whether Bob Kane or Jerry Robinson came up with the idea first. He recalled being shown a playing card in a rough clown-like sketch, then remembering an illustration of Victor Hugo's The Man Who Laughs, whose permanently grinning character inspired the Joker's eerie smile. He showed the image to Bob Kane, who refined the look with a more sinister profile, white face, red lips, and green hair. Finger also insisted that he alone created the Penguin, inspired by a Saturday Evening Post article about Emperor penguins, whose upright posture reminded him of stout English gentlemen carrying umbrellas. He added a top hat and trick umbrellas to complete the character. Finger also created the Scarecrow while Kane penciled his first appearance, and although Kane conceived Two-Face, Finger expanded his character in Detective Comics number 66 back in 1942. Finger created the Riddler, designed by Dick Sprang in 1948, and also created the Calendar Man. Now, outside of Batman, Bill Finger also worked with artists to conceive the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, who debuted in All American Comics number 16 back in July 1940. At some point, Bob Kane secured a contract with National Comics, now known as DC Comics, that granted him sole majority credit on all Batman comics and adaptations, leaving Bill Finger out of the mix, effectively signing away ownership in exchange for recognition and compensation. Finger's name, however, did not appear as any official credit on Batman stories or films until 2015. In 1989, Kane finally publicly acknowledged Finger as a major force behind a lot of the characters and a lot of the stories that Batman had to offer, and admitted that he never received the recognition he deserved. And in 2015, after some legal woes, DC Entertainment announced that Finger would officially receive credit in the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice film and a TV series Gotham after reaching an agreement with his family. His first formal comic book credit as a Batman co-creator appeared in Batman and Robin Eternal number 3 and Batman Arkham Knight Genesis number 3, with the acknowledgement reading Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. And on December 8th, 2017, a street was named after Bill Finger called Bill Finger Way near Poe Park, where he and Kane first met to discuss their ideas. He also became the subject of 2017's Hulu documentary Batman and Bill, which explored his life and long overdue recognition. Check it out. It gives more insight than I could possibly give in a short form video. But that is the story of Bill Finger. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. What other artists or writers should I focus on next? I'm thinking of doing a series called like Comics Confidential, where I kind of look at some artists and writers that have been mistreated by the comic book industry. It's just something a little different that I want to do than just talking about comics as a whole and different characters. But again, be sure to do all the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe. And I'm Anderson, and I'm out. Bye.